Somewhere, right now, in a room I cannot see, a person is sitting still in a way they have not sat still in a long time. Maybe they are at a kitchen table. Maybe they are in a car that has not yet been turned on. Maybe they are at the edge of a bed with their hands resting on their knees and their eyes fixed on something that is not really in front of them. They are not doing anything dramatic. From the outside, if you walked past them, you would not notice anything was happening. But on the inside of that person, something is happening that they have been postponing for a very long time. They are realizing what they had. They are realizing what they did. They are realizing what it is going to mean to live without you in the way they have been living without you. I want to take you inside that moment with me, slowly, because the texture of it matters. Most readings about a person realizing what they lost rush to the part where the person comes back. I am not going to do that. The realization itself is the more interesting story, and it is the part that is unfolding right now in real time in the actual life of an actual person who once had access to you and who let that access lapse. The coming back, if it happens, is downstream of the realizing. The realizing is what I want to walk you through, because the realizing is what is happening today. The first thing that is occurring inside this person is a kind of slowing down. For a stretch of time after the connection between you and them changed, they were able to keep moving. They were able to fill the days with other things. They were able to convince themselves in flashes of competent self-narration that what had been between you was not as significant as it had felt in the moments when it was happening. People are remarkably good at this kind of revisionism. They edit their own memories in real time, smoothing the edges, downgrading the intensity, recasting what was meaningful as something more ordinary. This person has been doing that for a while. The slowing down that is happening now is the moment when the edits stop working. There is a particular phenomenon that happens when someone has been suppressing the truth about a connection. The suppression takes effort, even when the person doing it is unaware of how much effort it is taking. When the effort finally fails, what comes back is not just the memory of the connection. What comes back is the memory of who they were when they were inside the connection. They remember not just you, but themselves with you. And the version of themselves that emerged in your presence is, in many cases, a version they have not been able to reach since. That recognition, the recognition that something about who they were able to be with you is no longer accessible to them, is one of the most painful realizations a person can have. It is the realization that they were not just losing you. They were losing a version of themselves that only existed in the configuration that included you. I want to be clear about what I am sensing because I do not want to dramatize this. The person I am describing is not falling apart. They are not sobbing on a floor. They are doing something more subtle and in some ways more significant. They are sitting with the simple fact of what they did. The simple fact is that they had access to a kind of presence, a kind of attention, a kind of care that they did not fully recognize while they had it. And the not recognizing was not innocent. There were moments when they could have seen it. There were moments when, if they had paused, they would have understood what was being offered to them. They did not pause. They moved past those moments. They assumed there would be more time. They assumed you would always be available in the form you had been available. They were wrong about that, and they know now that they were wrong, and the knowing is sitting in their chest like a weight that does not move when they try to shift their position. Let me tell you something about the kind of person you are, because the regret this other person is feeling is calibrated to the specific qualities you possess, and those qualities are worth naming. You have a way of paying attention that most people do not encounter very often in their lives. You actually listen when someone is talking. Not in the performative way that has become common, where listening is a slot one fills while waiting to speak, but in the actual way where the words a person says find their way into your understanding and shape your response. People who have experienced your listening do not always know how rare it is until they are no longer receiving it. Then they know. They notice the absence. They notice that other people in their lives are not paying attention the way you did. They notice that they are being heard but not understood, included but not seen. That is one quality. There are others. You have a capacity for warmth that is not the kind of warmth people usually mean when they use that word. It is not loud warmth. It is not performed warmth. It is a quiet steadiness that makes the people around you feel safer in their own bodies. They breathe more easily near you. They drop their performances. They tell you things they have not told other people, sometimes things they have not articulated even to themselves. This is not a small thing. This is a gift. And it is the kind of gift that, when withdrawn, leaves a particular kind of cold behind. The person who let go of you is now feeling that cold. They did not know it was a thing that could be cold. They thought it was simply the temperature of life. Now they understand that you had been adjusting the temperature quietly the entire time they knew you. This is Cancer Tarot, and the energy I am tuning into for you right now is unusually clear. Sometimes these readings come through with static. This one is coming through clean. Whatever energetic tuning has occurred between this person and your name has produced a strong signal, and the signal is telling me they are inside the realization at this very moment, perhaps even in the moment when this message reaches you. The synchronicity of timing is not accidental. You are receiving this now because the realization on their end has activated something in your field that is in turn surfacing this reading for you. You are connected. The connection has not been severed, despite the apparent ending. Connections of the kind you had do not sever cleanly. They thin out. They go underground. They reroute. They never simply disappear. I want to address something specific that this person is grappling with. They are realizing that they took something from the situation that they should have given. They are realizing that they were on the receiving end of more than they were on the giving end of, and that the imbalance, while it was happening, did not register as an imbalance to them because you made it look easy. You gave generously. You did not keep score. You did not constantly remind them of what you were contributing because you did not remind them, they did not see it. People often need to be told what they are receiving in order to recognize that they are receiving it. You did not tell them, and now in retrospect, they are doing the math themselves, and the math is ugly. They are seeing how much you brought to the dynamic and how little they brought in return. That math is the spine of the regret. Regret, when it is real, is not theatrical, it is methodical. It works through a list. It walks through specific moments. It revisits particular conversations and sees them differently than they were seen when they were happening. And the person I am describing is going through a list right now. Specific moments, specific things you said that they did not respond to with the seriousness those things deserved. Specific times you reached toward them and they pulled back, not because they did not want to be reached, but because reaching back required a vulnerability they were not yet capable of producing. They are seeing now that you were trying. They are seeing now that you were extending. They are seeing now that what they interpreted as you being available, easy, present, was actually you choosing again and again to keep showing up despite the fact that they were not always meeting you halfway. The choosing was love. They did not see the choosing, now they do. I want to slow down here because there is something this person is realizing that I want to articulate carefully. They are realizing that they had an opportunity not just to be with you, but to be themselves in a way they have not been themselves in any other context. There was a permission in your presence, a permission to drop the version of themselves that they were performing for the rest of their life. With you, they could be a softer version, a more honest version, a version that did not have to pretend to be okay all the time. They did not always take advantage of that permission. They were not always able to, but they knew on some level that the permission was there and they assumed they could come back to it whenever they needed it. The assumption that the permission would always be available is what is now being revised. They are understanding that the permission was tied to your presence, and that without your presence, the permission has expired. They cannot grant it to themselves. They cannot find it elsewhere. It was specific to what was between you. This is one of the deepest forms of regret a person can experience. It is the regret of having had access to something that allowed them to be more fully alive and having let that access lapse out of inattention or fear or the assumption that it would always be there. People build entire later chapters of their lives around the absence of this kind of access. They become harder. They become more guarded. They develop habits of self-protection that they would not have needed if they had remained inside the configuration that included you. The hardening that this person is now beginning to feel happening to themselves in the wake of having lost you is one of the things they are most afraid of. They do not want to become that harder version, but they do not know how to access the softer version without you. Let me tell you what I am sensing about the timing of all of this. There is a moment somewhere in the recent past when this person had a reminder of you that they were not prepared for. It might have been something small, a song, a phrase, a place they passed, a scent. The specific trigger does not matter. What matters is that the trigger broke through a defense they had been maintaining, and once the defense was breached, the rest started to come through. Memories began to surface that they had been keeping at a distance. Feelings began to circulate that they had been keeping suppressed. The dam, which had been holding, started to leak. The leak has now become significant enough that they cannot pretend it is not happening. That is what is occurring inside them right now. The dam is failing. The truth they have been refusing to look at is rising to a level that requires their attention. I want to pause for a moment to say something to you directly because I am aware that hearing all of this could produce a complicated reaction in you. There may be a part of you that wants to feel vindicated. That is allowed. Vindication is a real feeling and you are allowed to experience it. There may also be a part of you that feels sad about what is happening to this person. That is also allowed. The capacity to feel both relief and tenderness towards someone who hurt you is one of the markers of emotional maturity, and you have it. There may also be a part of you that does not entirely trust this, that has been told before that someone was realizing what they lost and watched nothing come of it. That part of you is also allowed. I am not asking you to feel a particular way. I am simply walking you through what is happening in their interior life. What you do with that information is yours to decide. There is something else I want to mention. Because it is part of the texture of what they are realizing, they are recognizing that they undervalued you in comparison. There were moments when they compared you to other people, perhaps to people they were also considering, perhaps to people from their past. And the comparisons did not fully account for the qualities that are now becoming visible to them in your absence. Comparison is a strange beast. It tends to focus on the most surface level features and miss the deeper ones. They were comparing you on grounds that did not actually capture what you were. Now, with the comparisons no longer available because the situation has changed, they are seeing what was actually there. They are seeing what they actually had. They are realizing that what they had was, in fact, the rare thing, the thing that does not show up in every life, the thing that, when it goes, is not easily replaced. This is one of the harder realizations because it is not just about losing you. It is about losing the chance to have something they may not have access to again. People do not often encounter, in a single lifetime, multiple connections of the depth and quality that they had with you. They had this one. They did not recognize it for what it was while they had it. They are realizing now that they may have used up their opportunity. That is a heavy thing for a person to sit with, and they are sitting with it. The sitting is what is producing the slowness I described at the beginning. It is hard to keep moving when you are processing something this significant. So they have stopped moving in the small way that internal stopping shows up, and they are letting it land. I want to walk through here on Cancer Tarot what they are likely to do next, because the realization is one phase, but the action that may or may not follow is a different phase. Some people, when they have realizations of this magnitude, take action. They reach out, they write the message, they make the call, they show up at the door. Other people do not. Other people sit with the realization in private and do not act on it, either because they are too proud or too ashamed or too convinced that it is too late or too uncertain about whether they would be welcome. I do not know which of these this person is. The energy I am picking up suggests they are in a hybrid state. Part of them wants to reach out, part of them is resisting. The two parts are in active negotiation right now. If they do reach out, the reaching is going to be tentative at first. It is not going to be a grand gesture. It is going to be small, perhaps even disguised as something casual, a check-in, a question with no real urgency behind it, an acknowledgement of something that does not require you to respond. They are going to test the waters before they say what they actually want to say. This is normal. People who have made significant mistakes in a connection rarely begin the repair with the most important sentence. They begin with smaller sentences and work their way toward the bigger one over a series of exchanges. If you receive a small, almost too casual message from them, do not dismiss it as nothing. It might be the first move in a longer sequence. Receive it for what it is and decide in your own time whether you want to engage with what comes after. If they do not reach out, the situation is also meaningful, but in a different way. Some people carry their regret quietly for a long time before they are able to externalize it. They may take months. In some cases, they may take longer. Their not reaching out is not an indication that the regret is not real. It is an indication of their own internal limitations, which are not your responsibility. You do not have to wait for them. You do not have to remain available indefinitely while they work through whatever is keeping them from acting. Your life continues. The information that they are realizing what they lost is useful for your own internal narrative, but it does not require you to put your life on hold while they decide what to do with the realization. There is something I want to say about your worth, because this entire reading is implicitly about your worth, and I do not want to leave the worth implicit. The fact that someone is realizing they will regret losing you is evidence of who you are. But you do not require the evidence. Your worth has never been contingent on whether others recognized it. Your worth is structural to who you are. It exists whether or not it is being witnessed, validated, or compensated. The realization happening in this other person's interior life is real, and it is happening, but it is not the source of your worth. It is simply a confirmation from one specific corner of the world of something that was already true. You can receive the confirmation without needing it. You can let it land without depending on it. That distinction matters. The most stable form of receiving is the one that is not built on need. I want to address a question that may be arising in you, the question of whether, if this person comes back, you should let them in. I am not going to answer that question for you because the answer depends on factors only you can fully assess, but I am going to offer some considerations. If they come back, the version of them that returns will not be the same version of them that left. Realizations of the kind they are now having tend to change a person, often in subtle but real ways. The question of whether to let them back in is not the same question as whether you would let the previous version of them back in. It is the question of whether the new version, the one shaped by this realization, is someone you want in your life. You will know when they return. You will be able to feel the difference, if there is a difference. Trust your own sensing. You have always had a strong instinct for the truth of people, even when you have sometimes overridden it for kindness. This time, do not override it. Another consideration is this. People sometimes return not because they are ready to give what they failed to give before, but because they are uncomfortable with the absence and are seeking relief from the discomfort. These two motivations look similar from the outside but lead to very different outcomes. If they return seeking relief from their own discomfort, the dynamic that produced the original ending will reassert itself, perhaps in slightly modified form. If they return having done the actual work of becoming someone who can be in the connection differently, the dynamic can change. The difference shows up in their actions over time, not in their words. Words can be performed. Sustained changes in behavior cannot. Watch what they do, not what they say. If they come back, take your time. You are allowed to take your time. The pace of any potential reconciliation is yours to set. I want to bring up something I am sensing about this person's broader life right now. They are not okay in some other areas of their life, and the not being okay is intersecting with the realization about you. This is part of why the realization is surfacing now. When everything else is going smoothly, people can sometimes maintain their suppressions indefinitely. When other things start to wobble, the suppressions start to fail because the inner resources required to maintain them get depleted. Something has destabilized in this person's life, and the destabilization has weakened their ability to keep the truth about you compartmentalized. The truth is leaking out into their daily awareness. It is showing up in their dreams. It is showing up in unguarded moments during otherwise unrelated activities. They cannot quite get away from it. I want to be careful here because I do not want to encourage a dynamic where this person uses you as a fix for the other things that are not working. That would not be fair to you. If they reach out, you have every right to assess whether their reaching is about you or about their own disrupted state. There is a version of this where they want you back because they want their stability back, and you happen to have been part of the previous configuration of stability. That is not the same as wanting you for who you are. You deserve to be wanted for who you are, not for the role you played in someone else's emotional ecosystem. Hold yourself to a higher standard than the standard they are currently capable of meeting. Let them rise to meet you if they can. Do not lower the bar to make their return easier. There is a beautiful, quiet truth at the center of all of this, and I want to articulate it before I move toward closing. The truth is that you are someone whose absence is felt. That is not a small thing. There are people in this world whose absences barely register, whose departures from other people's lives create a brief inconvenience and then are forgotten. You are not one of those people. Your absence creates a particular kind of empty space that cannot be filled by other presences. This is because you bring something specific into a relational field, something only you bring. When you withdraw, what withdraws with you cannot be replaced by someone else, no matter how that someone else is configured. This person is now learning what your specific contribution to their life was by observing the specific shape of the absence. They are reading you in negative space, and what they are reading is more vivid than they understood while you were still with them. You have shaped this person, even in the time you spent together that they did not value adequately. They carry pieces of you in how they think about certain things, in how they approach certain situations. In small mannerisms they picked up without realizing they were picking them up. They are not going to lose those pieces just because you are no longer in their life. The pieces remain. The pieces are now being recognized as pieces. They are noticing where their thinking ends and where your influence begins. That noticing is part of the regret, because they are recognizing how much of who they currently are is owed to the time spent with you. And they are wondering, somewhat painfully, who they would have become if they had not been so careless with the source. This is Cancer Tarot bringing this reading toward its closing. And what I want to leave you with is a particular orientation rather than a particular prediction. The orientation is this: you are not the one who has work to do here. The work belongs to them. Your work in this period is to continue being who you are, to continue showing up for your own life, to continue developing the qualities that make you the kind of person whose absence creates the kind of regret we have been describing. You are not waiting for them to come back. You are living. If they come back, they will arrive into a life that is already in motion, that already has its shape, that already has its rhythm. They will have to fit into that shape, not the other way around. This is the right configuration. You are not pausing your life for the possibility of their return. You are continuing your life, and the possibility of their return is a parallel thread that is not under your control and does not require your management. The trust I am asking you to extend is not trust in this person. It is trust in yourself. Trust that you will know what to do when the moment requires action. Trust that you have the discernment to read the situation accurately when and if it presents itself. Trust that the qualities that made you valuable to this person are intact and continue to be valuable, regardless of whether this particular situation resolves in any particular way. You are not depleted by what happened. You are not diminished. The connection's apparent ending did not subtract anything from you. It only made visible certain things about how the dynamic was actually structured, which is information you can use going forward. Going forward, you are going to encounter people who are more able to receive what you offer. This is not a consolation, it is an actual prediction. The people who come into your life from this point are likely to be more aware of value when they encounter it, more capable of reciprocating depth, more willing to do the work required to sustain the kind of connection you make available. Whether or not this particular person is able to return and engage at that higher level is one question. The other question is what becomes available to you regardless. The other question's answer is good. There is good ahead in the relational dimension of your life that does not depend on this particular situation resolving in any particular way. Receive what is being shown to you in this reading without taking on the burden of acting on it. The realization is happening in someone else. It is their realization, their work, their reckoning. You are allowed to know about it without doing anything with the knowledge. You do not have to reach out to them. You do not have to make space for them. You do not have to give them a sign. They have their work. You have yours. Your work is to keep being the person you have been becoming and to allow that becoming to continue without distortion. If they show up, they show up. If they do not, they do not. Either outcome is survivable. Either outcome leads forward. Either outcome contains its own kind of good. The image I want to leave you with is this. There is a person somewhere who is realizing what they had. The realization is real. It is happening. And there is you here continuing your life, growing into versions of yourself that this person will not be able to reach unless they evolve significantly to meet you. You are moving forward. The realization is happening behind you. Let it stay where it is. Let them have their reckoning in its own time. Your face is pointed in the direction of what is next, and what is next is not back. What is next is forward. What is next is the version of your life that does not require this person's return in order to be good. That version is already being built. You are inside the building of it. You are not the type of person who needs to be reclaimed in order to know your own value. You know your value. The fact that someone else is now also coming to know it is a confirmation, not a rescue. Receive the confirmation gently, carry it lightly, and keep walking. The path you are on is the right path. It does not require anyone to come find you for it to be the right path. You are already found. You found yourself in the time during which this person was failing to find you, and the finding stays. The finding is permanent. Whatever happens next is happening to a person who is already whole. That wholeness is the win behind every other win. It is yours. It cannot be taken. And it will be the foundation on which everything that comes next gets built, regardless of who shows up to participate in the building. Trust it. Walk forward. The good ahead is real, and it is finding its way to you, and it will not be denied by anyone's regret or anyone's return or anyone's hesitation. You are moving toward it. It is moving toward you. The meeting is inevitable. Be well. You are loved in ways you sometimes see and ways you do not. And the love that is awake right now in someone else's chest, even if it expresses itself only as ache, is one expression among many of how widely your life has touched. Receive it, then keep walking. Forward is where you are going. Forward is where the good lives. You are exactly the person who is meant to be standing where you are standing, and you will be met. You are already being met. The meeting just has not yet announced itself in the form you will eventually recognize as the answer.